Welcome, everyone, to Diagnostic Atypia, a new podcast space for diagnosis enthusiasts to experience diagnostic dilemmas from the general medicine wards and ICU. I'm Mike Arcieri, a hospitalist currently in my first year out of residency.
And I'm Andrew Sanchez, also a new hospitalist in my first year out of training. Mike and I will be your co-hosts, and we're so excited to introduce the podcast to you. We've been planning the show for almost a year now. It's crazy to be here recording the introduction for you all. For those who end up following along, you'll get to know us more personally in our episodes. So let me dive right into what our listeners want to know. Why this podcast, and what's the story behind it? The origin of this podcast can't be explained without first talking about what I call the diagnosis community. So where to begin? I knew early on in residency that the diagnosis community was single-handedly the most formative part of my medicine training. I resonated a lot with something I'd heard from Dr. Andre Mansour, the author of a popular book called Frameworks for Internal Medicine. Not exactly in these words, he said, "Treatment is easy. Once you know the diagnosis, you can always look up treatment." And reading Dr. Mansour's book cover to cover during my med school rotations was my own personal initiation into the world of diagnosis. Then entered the pandemic. I'm in my fourth year of med school and classes are canceled. I'm browsing Twitter and I see a tweet from an account called the Clinical Problem Solvers. They're inviting med Twitter to join what they call a virtual morning report. And I think this is interesting. I log into a Zoom, and there are at least 50 learners in this Zoom from the student to attending level. What I witness here absolutely blows my mind. There's someone presenting a mystery case to two attending physicians who are paired with two case discussants. The case discussants take a stab at serial aliquots of the case info, sharing aloud their diagnostic impressions, and this is followed by the two attendings fleshing out the differential diagnosis. And the CP solvers were something else. I'd never seen physicians have such structured approaches to symptoms and lab arrangements. And it was really in that moment I realized I was obsessed with learning how to approach diagnosis. And fast forward a few years, I'm then a resident in internal medicine. And like clockwork, I'm listening to diagnosis-focused podcasts as soon as episodes are released. Listeners, let me list off these podcasts quickly because they really are the bedrock of the diagnosis community. First up comes a group I already mentioned, the Clinical Problem Solvers. They're a multi-platform group whose mission is to democratize diagnostic reasoning education, and they touch on important issues in the diagnosis space, such as increasing the presence of women in diagnostic reasoning and highlighting the need for anti-racism in medicine. While the amount of topics the CP Solvers cover is impressive, they'll forever be a legendary group for the bringing together of clinicians across the globe who are exceptionally invested in becoming master clinicians. Being a team member of the CP Solvers myself, I can say it's really special. Related to the CP Solvers is the RLR, aka Robbie Loves Reza podcast. This is a subscription podcast hosted by two of the co-founders of the CP Solvers. Diagnostic Atypia is going to be structured very similarly to that model. We'll get to that in a bit. Next up is the St. Paul's Morning Report podcast. This features collaborative case discussions on mystery cases. In the same vein, the Alerts and Oriented podcast, which is med student run, also features several case discussants tackling a clinical unknown. Finally, the I Am Reasoning podcast, which is actually a retired one, has a wealth of recorded cases and even features episodes highlighting cognitive models behind clinical reasoning, as well as expert interviews. Okay, that was a long aside on the diagnosis community, but extremely important background context for this podcast. And one night, my PGY3 year, I realized, yes, there are endless CP solving exercises online to read, but the diagnosis community really needs even more podcast-based cases. It's in that moment I realized I need to create this space for DX enthusiasts, and I'm immediately texting Mike. This might sound crazy, but what do you think about starting a podcast? I'm going to pass it to Mike to explain what exactly the Diagnostic Atypia podcast will be.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andrew, especially for laying the foundation for what we hope to be. Andrew and I both trained together in residency, and we quickly became close friends by the end of the program. And I'd really say that our friendship blossomed from discussing cases over dinner, giving each other a one-liner, building the hype through aliquots, and then finally delivering that exciting diagnosis. To our waiters, I'm sure this was an odd sight, but to me, this was a reminder of why I chose this career. You can lose sight of that sense of wonder and excitement when you're in the trenches of residency. And I was thankful for these dinners because they rekindled that, which sometimes residency threatened to burn out. Truthfully, podcast or not, Andrew and I will continue to discuss cases as friends. That's just the nature of our friendship. But why not share that excitement with all of you? why not turn on the mic so you can listen in to dinner? And so let me finally tell you what we hope to do with this podcast. First and foremost, our name is a nod to the old adage, it's more likely that a common thing will present uncommonly than an uncommon thing will present commonly. We will present all kinds of cases from both the ICU and the wards, but we'll focus primarily on cases where common diseases present in atypical ways. For that reason, I think the bulk of the cases we discuss are things you could see in your own hospital. Second, in the grand scope of our careers, Andrew and I are right at the beginning. We are often told that the first year of attending is the hardest. We are confronted with an immense responsibility, but nothing really magically has changed since graduating residency a few months prior. Often we suffer in self-doubt, in silence, assuming everyone else knows what's going on, and it's just us that don't know. But we assure you that that is the farthest thing from the truth, and we offer you this unique opportunity to come along for the ride and learn alongside us while we figure out these early years together, and hopefully with grace, humility, and a good sense of humor. And the last reason is personal. Andrew and I need these conversations. Inside both of us, I think, is a little kid who watched House MD and said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. No one goes to medical school to negotiate prior auths, write endless notes, score pre-11 discharges. And on the days when you're questioning if this choice was the right one, we hope to remind you that this job can and is still fun. We hope to restore that sense of wonder you had back when you first stepped foot on the wards. And if this sounds worthwhile to you, we do want to welcome you aboard.
Thanks so much, Mike. Listeners, we'll now leave you with some specifics about how we'll run the podcast. First, we want this podcast to be as educational as possible. We'll do our best to keep each other accountable by asking as many thought-provoking questions as we can, and we'll strive to say out loud all of our cognitive leaps. Second, as Mike just alluded to, we want to promote authentic diagnostic reasoning in this space. To that end, all of our episodes will be, quote, open book at default. Real-life medicine is open book. With some caveats, getting patients diagnostic closure is increasingly about how clinicians access and manipulate information rather than how they memorize information. And with that in mind, we'll be sure to let you know when we're reaching for our notes, and we look forward to promoting a variety of diagnostic educators. In this day and age, there's so many good frameworks for diagnosis out there. Most of the time, in fact, there's no need to create a framework for a problem because there's already a really good one out there. You just have to adapt it.
Yeah, totally, Andrew. I just want to quickly talk about the community. We are going to have guests on this show, and we're really excited about that. If you're at all interested in bringing us a common or an uncommon clinical dilemma, please do reach out to us at our email. It's Dx.atypia@gmail.com. Once again, Dx.atypia@gmail.com. Guests of all training levels are welcome, including and especially medical students.
Listeners, if you've made it this far and are jazzed to hear our first diagnostic dilemma, listen on. Episode 1 is coming right up. Ta-da!
We're going pretty well. How did you feel?